Okay, let's move with the presentation. Today I'm here to discuss with you all the art of writing research papers. So that's why I renamed this as Mastering the Art of Research Paper Writing. So let's start with the session. First, I like to say I know that you are trying to do something innovative and don't know how to publish it in a proper way. And yes, the same question I had before 3 or 4 years ago. But after following this process, I was able to complete a research project as well as published in on a journal. So let's start the session. So the today's session topic is mastering the art of research paper writing. So as you all know, so let's move to keep our innovative ideas published. Okay. So this is today's agenda. First, I'm going with the what is the research. Then I like to discuss with you developing a research question. Then data collection methods and methodologies. Finally, how to organize your own research paper. So what is research? I know you have some questions. Actually, what is research? So this is the basic definition that I have found from the internet. This is the definition, as I believe this is the definition of the research. It's a proper method. The definition says the systematic investigation into and study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. According to the definition and with my experience, I believe that research is something that you are going to implement it in an innovative way. It may be a advanced way for previous one or your all new idea. It may be both, but however, the end results or the output should be an innovative new thing. According to the definition, I believe that it's the best way to address what is a research, what is the definition of a research. So, okay, this is research cycle. So we already know to do something. We should have proper plan, and we should follow proper guidelines. So this is research cycle. Okay. So first, we have to think what will be my research idea, what will be the plan, what is the question, what should be the answer that I'm going to give that specific particular question. So first thing is we have to think and plan what will be my research or what will be the solution for that specific question. Next, to discover methods to address that question. So we can find several discoveries for that specific question. It's okay. It's up to you to find several several discoveries for address that specific question. So next is gather and analyze. So if you are going to do a research, it may be a research project, it may be a research paper, it may be your new own idea to implement some hardware thing. It's okay, it's up to you, it's your idea. So the next step is gather and analyze the data. So we can go through the previous researches, we can go through some, there are several methods, so we can do some surveys likewise. We can gather data from our friends. It's also kind of a survey. So likewise, we have to gather and analyze our own data for our findings. Then the last but not least one is write and publish. If we are trying to publish, we are trying to publish it as a like a paper. So it's our last step. But even if it is the last step, we have to share our thoughts, share our new innovation with the uh, everywhere. Because if we are trying to publish this kind of papers in a Google Scholar or ResearchGate, or there are several websites which only focuses these research papers. And don't worry, I will be explaining everything in the next slides. So the final thing is to share your idea and take the comments from other researchers as well as other lecturers or whatever the person who read your research paper. So this is the simple research cycle, but there is no end. You have always, you have to think always how to improve my idea, how to improve my innovation, how to add some new features. Likewise, so the same paper, same idea, you can go through this research cycle several times. It's say 10 times or 20 times. However, every time you go with this cycle, the end result will be perfect than your last time. So every attempt is valuable when you are creating research, when you're creating a research project or a research paper. So, okay, now we know there's a research cycle, how to implement research. And this is the question, when do we do a research? That means how, not how, but when. What is that? So, if we are trying to do a research, first we have to understand what is the question. Or we should have a issue and we have to address that issue with an answer. So first, like in the research cycle, we have to think about a problem. It may be your personal one you will face in your day-to-day life. Because my paper was my idea to create a VGA card which can increase or decrease. We can upgrade that its memory VRAM. So that was my first paper because I already had a question with that part. So likewise, you have to understand the problem. You have to find a problem, find the issue, or even you are trying to implement something as a web application. Think you have to you there is a method to connect the backend of the web application with the front end. We are calling them as APIs. So think the current API is not working. You have to think how can I fix that solution? Do I need to implement new thing? Likewise. So first you have to come up with your question. Then you have a right. Or the next step is to confirm something that is already known. Because with the API example, we already know there's something called API to connect backend and front end. But right now it's not working. So you have to confirm there is the thing is already known. So the next step is to extend something that is already known. That means first I explain the question. If you have a question, it's okay. But if you have faced something already known, but there's an issue, it's another thing. The next is to extend something that is already known. That means you have a solution for particular question which done by someone else, but you know that it's not enough. I can add something for that particular research. So you are trying to extend that research by your own. So it's another one. At last, to challenge a known fact. That means, let's say it like this. So you already know in mathematically, we know 1 plus 1 is 2. It's a known fact. But if you believe, okay, someone said 1 plus 1 is 2, but I'm trying to prove that 1 plus 1 is 4. It can be happen because we don't know anything about mathematics well. It can be done or it can't be done. I don't know about the end result, but you can challenge with that fact. It's already known 1 plus 1 is 2. But if you are trying to challenge with that, and yes, you are correct, but I believe that 1 plus 1 is 4. It's okay. It's up to you. So you can challenge that on fact. So that's why I point out these 4 things in slide of when do we do research. So I believe that you understand the scenario, but if you have any question, just ask and it's okay to interrupt. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. So this is last slide is when do we do a research, and this slide is how do we do a research. Actually, this is the first step we have to think about when doing something, doing a research. So how do we do that research? First, we have to analyze the project area. We already know we have a research question. Think I want to implement some algorithm. Let's take the last example. 1 plus 1 is 2. So I believe that 1 plus 1 is equal to 4. So I think I can implement an algorithm to prove that my idea. That means 1 plus 1 is 4. But if I think about machine learning or artificial intelligence, it's very broad one, because we already know there are hundreds of thousands of algorithms, technologies inside machine learning or AI. So I think that it's okay. I'm using that AI part, artificial intelligence, but I have to think about what will be the technology that I'm going to use. What will be the technology that I'm going to implement my own algorithm. So I have to break part by part, like peeling an onion. So finally, I have to think about what will be my area. So if I need to do that in a mathematical way using, let's see, I am trying to use RNN for my application. That means recurrent neural network. It's something new with the machine learning. So now I know my project area is very narrow. So I am just going to use RNN, that means the recurrent neural network, for my application, for my research. Likewise, we have to think about our project area. If I have a question, I have to peel it like an onion and go through with every step and decrease my project area. That is the best approach to start a research project. Likewise, the next step is formulate my question. Formulate your question. So I have to think about it. So I have to create a proper question to give a proper answer. Likewise, my one. I'm going to challenge a known fact. That means 1 plus 1 is 2. But I believe that 1 plus 1 is 4. So likewise, I have to first analyze the project area, then formulate my question. The next step is plan how are you going to answer it. So likewise, I told you, I'm going to using machine learning, especially artificial intelligence, especially using recurrent neural network to answer my question. That's the method I'm going to use in my research. So that's my plan. So first, if you are going to plan your research, first step is plan. If you're going to plan how are you going to answer the question, the first step is how have others answered it. So with your plan, you have to think about that. You have to read about how others have answered the same question in the same format. So if someone publish a research paper, like think 3 plus 3 is 2, so you have to go through like that paper. So you have to always read about the past publications, which only related to your idea or only related to your question. The next step is how does your proposal fit in with what others have done. So in that case, you have to think, is my question is okay right now. I have a good question. You already have a good question to answer. But I have to think when I'm planning my research, does my project is going to align with others? Does my research is going to align with others? So if they are using mathematical models to answer some particular question like my one, I have to use that, because using another technology may be okay, but they have followed the structured method. So I have to follow that structured method to come up with my answer. It is another kind of research. So you have to research on someone's work to find that this is going to working with my question, or this will going to help support my answer on my question. The next step is how will you know when you have answered it? You already know if you have a question, you should have an answer. So if your mathematical model is in my example, in my mathematical model is not going to answer my question, it's not going to be a research. It's just something rubbish. So I have to think, everyone have to think, how will we know when we have answered? So if we have a research question, so we should have what will be my research answer. And finally, we have to reach a conclusion. We already know when reading research papers or someone's work or anything, we can see a conclusion section. So we already know in that conclusion section, everything is summarized. From let's think there is a book from 300 pages with 300 pages and start from 1 to 300. So in that conclusion section, we can find that every major detail on that conclusion from page 1 to 300. Likewise, you have to create a conclusion for your question with your answer. In the conclusion, every process is there, but very brief. Only the special points. Okay, now I'm going to explain about writing a research. First, now I believe that you already have a question. According to the session, I think that you already have a question and you need to write a paper. You need to publish your idea. Okay, So first you have to think about your audience. Who will be read my paper? And also the guidelines. So audience means let's think I need to write a paper um, about that front and back end connection API issue. So I'm planning to implement a new algorithm or new library for that scenario. Okay, it's a good question. I believe that that will be a proper answer for that question. But if I publish a paper on that question with that library already implemented, and I publish that paper, and I'm going to give it to read to someone who already don't know have any idea about IT, anything about information technology. So that particular person is not going to be a part of my audience because that one do not have any idea, any simple idea about IT. So it's not my audience. So my audience will be the ones who are related to technology. It's kind of a techie persons. So that will be my audience. So we have to think about our audience. If we publish a paper and we trying to give it to the persons who are not related to my idea, not related to my question, so it's not going to be work well because they cannot give you any comment on your paper. Likewise, you have to think about your audience and the guideline because there are proper guidelines to write a paper, write a research paper as well as do any simple project. So you have to follow all the guidelines to come give a proper superb output. Next point is the format of the research paper. Especially now I'm going to narrow my every idea, every slide, just focusing on writing a research paper. Then this is the format. So in the format, there are several steps. So first you have to think about your title. It's your project title. So if you have idea like implementing a new algorithm for API issue, it's kind of a new top title. Likewise, you have to think about your title. It should be a good title. It should be a detailed title. So if someone is going to read your title, that particular person can gain an idea about what is this research paper and what will be there. So you have to give them a proper title. Then the abstract. Uh, okay, abstract. I believe that abstract is a new word for you. So we can say abstract is kind of a thing like conclusion. But this time, abstract is the first one of our research paper. Why is that? Because we can say abstract is a kind of a executive summary for our research paper. In the abstract section, we try to tell our reader or our audience, this is my question, this is my findings, this is my answer, this is my future implementation. Likewise, don't think about that keyword abstract or what is that right now because there will be a brief explanation after a couple of slides. So abstract is kind of an executive summary. So the reader can get an idea about your project, about your research by reading on that abstract. It's the most important place of your project or the research paper. Then the background and introduction. Background and introduction means, sorry, background and introduction is about your project. First, introduction is how you are going to address this UI issue. And likewise, so introduction is you are introducing the reader. This is my project. This is the question that I have in this paper. Then this is my idea about this question, and this is going to be my answer. Likewise, so you introducing your research paper to the reader. Then the background with the like in the introduction section, you telling about the background of your question as well as your research area. So if you are trying to implementing a machine learning scenario on your as your research outcome or the output, you have to say about, you have to mention about the machine learning background or artificial intelligence background, or else you are trying to implement or just tell someone you are trying to implement a new smart water bottle. So you have to tell about the background of that water bottle. Likewise, the next point is research questions. So it's another most important part of your research paper, because it's another main point, because most of the time research question is the main question that you are going to answer. But somehow in some papers you can find there are several research questions. But my recommendation is, if you are very new to write the research paper, it's better if you have just only one question. But if you can manage several questions, it's okay. You can have several questions on your sing just only your single paper. But the question is, if you are trying to publish your research paper with let's say it's two or three research questions, the best way to address is, first you have to create a major question, and the rest will be sub questions which supports your major question or major outcome. Likewise, so question is another main thing you have to keep in your mind, because it's the main point of application and it is the question, and the rest of the paper will be going to answer that question or questions. Next part is a literature review. Literature review means the findings you have found by referencing other papers. So before writing your own paper, you have to go through with several research papers already published. You can find them from several resources like ResearchGate, Google Scholar, PubMed, Sci-Hub. Likewise, you have to read more and more. You have to read relevant papers about your project, about your question, about your innovative idea. So you have to use them on your literature review to tell your audience that I have already read these papers and those papers, and those papers support me on that scenario. But my one, this is the new innovation that I'm going to implement, and these papers are going to support for my outcome. Likewise, that's the literature review, and it's another major important part of the research paper. The next thing is methodology. Methodology is another important thing, but it's going to tell your audience that how did you gather your data, how did you uh, what we can say. Okay, let's think about in very simple. It's a method that I conducted my paper, like data gathering, surveys. Likewise, methods I have used, likewise. The next section is the findings or the results. It means the end result of your research paper. So think about that smart water bottle. So that is your innovative idea. So the conclusion, the results is the your implementation. So if you have already created the smart water bottle with its all appliances or the parts, technical parts, it is your result. Or it's just only academic paper without doing any implementation. So you have to tell in this result section your all findings. Then the conclusion. Conclusion is the summary of your research paper, which already summarizes everything from introduction to findings. And the important thing about conclusion is you have to tell everything in very short. I told you that abstraction is like the executive summary, and conclusion is like another summary, because when someone is going to read your paper, the main thing is that particular guy is start from your abstract, but not reading the content. He is come to the conclusion section, because it's a very best practice, because think the paper is about 20 pages, but you can gain the main idea of that paper by reading this abstract part, and the conclusion part. So these two things are the most important things to your paper. And about these conclusions, abstract, and the rest of the things, I will explain in the next slides, because this is not the place to explain everything. The last part is references and bibliography. So references section, you have to include everything you have take from another other authors, other papers, other sources likewise. So in the references section, you have to mention everything you have took from other authors to your paper, other papers to your paper. But in the bibliography section, you can mention everything you have read, you have watched, you have used. Actually, not used in the paper, but for your better knowledge, the things you have used for your better knowledge uh, can be put in the bibliography section. Okay, it's all about what is a research for the first section, and it is the end of the first section of the session. So before going to the second section, guys, do you have any questions about what is a research, or about the first section of the session? If you have any question, just raise your hand or just unmute your mic and ask the question. It's okay if it's in Sinhala or English. It's okay. With the silence, I believe that no one has any questions. By the way, it's good, but I don't know. Diluk, is everything okay to move with the second part of the session? Okay, thank you. So the next part is developing a research question. So now we already know what is research, but we have a question. But this is going to tell you how to create a good research question. So let's move. Okay, as in previous slides, there is another definition of a research question. The first one is saying, the first bullet point is saying, a research question is a specific inquiry which the research seeks to provide a response to. It resides at the core of the systematic investigation, and it helps you to clearly define a path for the research process. So, as it explains, a research question should be a specific inquiry, or should be a specific one. And the research should be provide the solution for that specific question. So that is a definition. We can say it's a kind of a definition of a research question. And the next point says a research question pinpoints exactly what you want to find out in your work. A good research question is essential to guide your research paper, dissertation, or thesis. That means if you have a good research question, it should explains what will be your answer, your output. So it's not just a question, it should be a meaningful, descriptive research question according to the definition. So this slide, it's about characteristics of a research question. Now we know what is the definition of a research question, and now we are going to learn about characteristics of a research question. Likewise, I said this is not just a simple question, it should be meaningful. And let's move with the characteristics. First one is actually a research question is a focused one. So think in the previous example I got was 1 plus I need to implement a new algorithm to show that 1 plus 1 is not equal to 2, it's equal to 4. So that is my question. So it should be focused. So yes, it's focused because I want to show that 1 plus 1 is not equal to, it's just 4. It's focused. Then it should be a researchable question. Think think someone is going to ask from you, or you are asking, I want to drink a cup of coffee. So is it researchable? It's kind of researchable because if someone asks from you, I need to drink a cup of coffee, so you're going to research by asking him, his or your colleague, with several questions. So you can ask, what kind of a coffee? It's a cappuccino. Do you need additional sugar? Likewise, the question should be researchable. So you can gather data from doing surveys by using secondary sources, primary sources. Likewise, the next is feasible. So if you have a question, it's okay. Let's think we everyone in this session we have a question. We have a focused and researchable question. So, but the question is now we even we have a question, we don't know how to answer it on a right time frame. So if we are planning to do in 3 or 4 months, it's okay. So we can use that time frame to answer that question. But at the end of the fourth month, if one of us trying to spend another month on that question, it's not a feasible one because we are trying to postpone the deadline. It's not a good point, as well as it's not a good characteristic of a research question. The next one is the research question should be a specific one. So the question should be specific. That means there cannot be have any question like your one. Because if there are another question as same as your question, it's not specific. So you have to be specific. You have to deeply question that specific point. Likewise. And the next point is your question should be a complex one. That means you can manage your answer for any question, but when the question is more complex, you can research on that question and it's very enough to develop a new answer for that question. For that your innovative question, if it is very simple, you cannot give a proper answer for that. Like, are you hungry? I can say yes or no. It's not a complex one. But someone is trying to ask, let's go for a lunch and what do you like to have? It's kind of a complex one because that one give me some options to check. I can say any answer. I can give anything. I can say, let's have some fried rice for lunch. Likewise, it's kind of a complex one because the one who are going to ask the question from me don't know any result of myself. So it should be very complex. Finally, it should be relevant. Uh, let's say we all know we are in the IT industry, but think you are trying to implement a new genetic for a new tree. It's out of our subjects, but you think you believe that I can do this because I already know some very basic things about biology. It's okay if you have proper knowledge on that your field, but somehow it should be relevant to your field of study. Yes, it should be relevant to your field of study because think you are trying to implement a new network adapter and you are a network student. It's definitely going to be a good answer and you already know what are the techniques of networking. Likewise, so You have to keep in mind these characteristics that research question should be focused, researchable, feasible, specific, complex, and relevant to your field of study. Okay. Now, let's talk about how to develop a research question. How to develop a proper research question. Okay, first, to develop a research question, we have to have a interesting topic. Like, if we don't have any idea, oh, we don't like to learn networking, what will happen if you are trying to implement a new technology in networking, innovative idea? It's not going to work because you are bored with that subject. But if you like to develop a web application or web development or front end development, if you are trying to implement new thing, new innovation to, let's say it's a kind of adapter for front end and back end, likewise, it will be very, very interesting of, because you allow to learn these things, you allow to work with them. So you have to identify your topic. The next is brainstorm. That means you have to list out all the ideas, because okay, let's move. The next point is brainstorm. So you have to list out all your ideas which you are trying to implement with your output. So if you are trying to, let's say if you are trying to implement a new adapter to connect front end and back end, so you can list your idea to a paper. So let's say I need to implement that one. So I'm trying to think what are the technologies that already used to implement these kind of APIs. So what will be better for my solution? What will be the technology? Like what is the language I'm going to use? Likewise, you have to list out everything that you want to include your paper. The next is identify a research-oriented problem with the practical aspect. So think if you are trying to implement something, but not going to be a practical one. Likewise, let's think about the biological question that I need to implement a new genetic, because it's a very good research. You can think about that. But if it's just going to be an improvement, but we are not going to use it any day, anytime, it's not going to be a practical thing, because we just implement a new thing, new genetic, but it's not going to work. So it cannot be happen. So you have to identify a research oriented problem with a practical aspect. That front and back end connectivity with the new API is very practical thing. You can implement, you can create a library, and you can publish somewhere else as well as your research paper. The next is should be affiliated with a unique component, because in your research you should have to do based on a unique component. So you have to address a unique answer. You have to address a unique question with a unique answer. That cannot be seen anywhere right now, and it should be your own idea or your own answer. So it should be unique. The next is it's essential to understand your audience to develop focused research question. I told you already, you have to think about your audience. To develop a research question, as I mentioned previous slide, you have to think about always you have to think about your audience, because your audience will be the ones who are going to read your paper and give you a comment, and maybe they will going to use your paper as another reference or another literature review. Likewise, you have to think about your audience. Finally, you have to conduct a background research. So you have to read papers, you have to find any literature sources from other authors, other publications, to gain an idea about your new unique idea and how to implement my idea according to the previous publications, as well as how my idea will align with those publications. Likewise, So this is the step to develop a good research question. Okay. This is an example to develop a good research question. There is a statement. Suppose that after reading current research, you want to examine to what degree social networking sites are harmful to users. It's kind of a statement. So you have to come up with a good title. In here, title is harmful effects of social networking. Yes, it's okay. It's a good title according to the previous statement or the paragraph. It addresses the harmful effects and from the social networks. So it's a good title for the project because this is the title of your project or the research. Next, there is two research questions. First one is possible research question. Based on your title or the statement, you can create several research questions. Everything is possible. In here, the possible research question is why are social networking sites harmful? Yes, it's a good question. But with the previous slide, it says about the characteristics, focus, researchable, feasible, specific, complex, relevant. We have to think about that. I'm going to think about this. Why are social networking sites harmful is aligned to the characteristics of a research question. It's focused, it's researchable, and okay, but it's not a good question. It's good, but it's kind of a good, but it's not a good research question. So the good research question is how are online users experiencing or addressing privacy issues on such social networking sites as Facebook and Twitter? Okay, it's focused because it's going to think about Facebook and Twitter, and it's researchable. It is unique. Because why is that unique? Because it's going to think about Facebook and Twitter only with privacy issues. It's complex and it's focused likewise. So this is a very good research question. It fulfills all the characteristics that we already know from the previous slide. And this is a very good example to create a title as well as to create a possible research question. It's not a one. You can have several possibilities. And finally, the good research question has formed using those possibilities. What is that possible research questions? Okay. Now I have completed the second section of the session. If you have any questions, you can ask right now. It seems no questions, so let's move forward. The third part of the session is data collection, because if you are going to write research paper, you should have more data. So let's talk about methods and methodologies. Okay. In this slide, I have separated methods to the left side and methodologies to the right side. So first, what are the methods? Methods are specific practical procedures for collecting and analyzing data. You can have several methods to create, analyze your data, gather your data. You can make a questionnaire, you can do interviews likewise. With that, you can do a qualitative research or quantitative research. Yes. Or else, we already know these terms like as quantitative data gathering and qualitative data gathering. I know that you already know the definition of these terms. So quantitative data means you can count it like as numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and qualitative mean it's a descriptive. And the next is primary data gathering and secondary data gathering, or primary research, conducting a primary research, or conducting a secondary research. Primary research is the research you are trying to do your own work. If you are doing data gathering using Google Docs, it's a primary research. And if you are trying to interview some persons, it's a primary research. It's a primary data gathering. The secondary data gathering means you are going to check whether the previous publications likewise. So it's secondary because something is published somewhere else and you are trying to use these things for your current research. The next part is methodology. Okay, methodology is a framework guiding research, including theories, principles, and strategies to organize and achieve research objectives effectively and reliably. I know we have already done several projects in the university. It's okay, whatever. On that project, I know you have learned about the methodologies, what we call them as what are the methodologies? Kanban, Scrum methodology, waterfall methodology, agile methodology, likewise. So these methodologies are the ones we are trying to, we are not trying, we are just using those methodologies to conduct our research, to gather data likewise. So these methodologies may be different with their different software development life cycles, because we already know that what is waterfall methodology, what is Kanban methodology, what is agile methodology, what is Scrum methodology likewise. So the SDLC, that the software development life cycle is changed according to these methodologies. So in here I have a video about several methodologies. Or you all know about iceberg architecture. So I'm going to play this video for your more information, and it's about those methodologies and related things. Diluk, can you see the video? Okay, I think you can listen to it. And can you hear the video? Yeah. Okay.
Epistemology,
Let's go with this.
methodology, and methods. Do you find the terms ontology and epistemology alien and confusing? You are not alone, but today I am going to simplify these terms for you and give you a great way to remember them. Before we get stuck in, please hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you know when we upload other videos like this. When we design a research study, we always think of the methods. The methods we choose say a lot about our assumptions, even if these assumptions are not always obvious to us. Let's think of our methods as the tip of an iceberg. Lying just below the iceberg's tip is the methodology, which people often confuse with methods. Theology means that there has been a debate or study, so methodology is the study of methods. Methodology is the set of discussions, debates, decisions, and choices you have made to get to your methods. It considers your research question, your skill set, resources, time, etc. Lying even lower beneath the surface are your ontological and epistemological beliefs. Let's talk about two types of ontology, realism and relativism. There are other ontologies, but that's the subject for another video. In a nutshell, realists believe that one truth exists, so this belief leads them to certain ways of generating knowledge. What we believe about how to generate knowledge is our epistemological belief. Because realists believe there is a single truth out there, they seek to find this truth using what we have come to know as the scientific method. They try to discover new knowledge using objective approaches where you look from outside, make measurements, and draw conclusions. Relativists, however, believe that there are multiple realities and that we can only learn about these realities by understanding the meaning that our research participants give to the phenomenon we are studying. Let's take an example. Say you want to know if Sierra Leone is a wealthy country. If you believe that wealth is measured in economic terms, then your task would be pretty simple. You only have to identify economic indicators of wealth. such as gross domestic product, and you would have your answer. However, if you believe that wealth could have multiple meanings, then you may embark on a different kind of study, one in which you visit Sierra Leone, spend time with the people, and discuss what wealth means to them. So there you have it, ontology and epistemology explained, and the link to your methodology and methods clarified.
Okay, I believe that you can understand. You just got a brief idea about what is methods and what is methodology. According to that video, methods is the way we do our data gathering or the research, and methodology is the way we work on that method as well as ontology and epistemology. So at the last part of the video, it just do a simple research. It's very related to our today's session. So they are trying to find that Sierra Leone is a wealthy country. So someone is trying to use the GDP for count or to tell that the Sierra Leone is a wealthy country, but another one is trying to go to that country, stay with that people, talk with that people, learn their methods likewise. So it's kind of a research. So I believe that you got the best idea about methods and methodology with that video. So let's move to the next section of the session. So, okay, I told you that according to with the method section, there are data gathering, quantitative, qualitative, and primary and secondary. In this slide, it will briefly explain the primary and secondary data gathering. Primary data gathering means, as I told you, the process of collecting original data directly from the first-hand sources through methods like questionnaires, interviews, experiments, observations, surveys, likewise. It's your own method. You can do anything you want to gather your primary data. It's up to you to use or to choose which method you like. The secondary data gathering is a process of collecting data from existing resources that have been previously published, such as research papers, journals, BSc, MSc, PhD theses, and government resources, because they are trusted sources. Because if you are going to get an idea about your research question from a published thesis, let's think it's a BSc thesis, it's very trusted source. Not like primary data gathering, secondary data gathering, data comes from trusted sources. They are published, they are published likewise. So because when we do a primary research gathering, someone can give us lies on a survey, but secondary is not like that. Secondary is very trusted, so you can continue research with that secondary research as secondary data gathering or secondary research, but you need primary data gathering or a primary research on your project, on your research, sorry. So this is the methods. These are the methods that we are going to use to collect data, gather data for our research project, research paper. First is questionnaire method. So we can include closed-ended questions, and we already call them as structured questions and open-ended questions, unstructured questions. So in structured questions, in the questionnaire, they are providing the question with the answer, like yes or no answers. If someone asks from you, are you hungry? You can say yes or no. It's a structured question or closed-ended question. The open-ended question is someone is asking you, can we go for lunch? What are you going to, what will be your choices? It's kind of an open-ended question. So you can say anything. You can have any choice for that question as your answer. So these are structured. Think about your questionnaire. So for your questionnaire, you are asking someone, I'm planning to implement a smart water bottle. So it have these kind of specific features. It's okay. So what do you think? What color will be better? It's kind of unstructured question, because someone can say you can have black or white. Someone can say it's better if you have red, white, yellow, like this. So no many answers. no any specific answers. So it's kind of an unstructured question. And yes, you can use Google Forms for create forms and questionnaires, and it's always be free. And you can use really however you want it. The next thing is next method is interview methods. So it's kind of a face-to-face interviews, voice-to-voice interviews, screen-to-screen interviews. It's your preference, it's your choice. You can have any kind of interview to gather your data. Next slide is going to briefly explain when creating a survey. It's kind of a question. When creating a survey, you have to think about these points. First, you have to think about your audience. The next, you have to think about your research question. Then there's a special highlight point. Remember, you must gather the opinions of others and use these to make arguments. Next, what you need is a good research question and data which to use in discussing your research questions. That means you have to come up with a good research question and data, especially they should go into discuss in your research questions. Finally, your argument should be based on what the data tells you and what you find in literature review. So you cannot add anything unnecessary in your arguments, in your findings. You should only add the ones you found from your literature review and your primary research or secondary research. So you have to think about these points when creating a survey. It's always your method to it's your method to create your own survey, but you have to think about these points. Okay. Uh, it's the end of the third section, so I'm directly moving to this final section, how to organize the research paper. Okay. So first, now you have the question. Now you have done your data gathering. Now you have to put everything in a proper way in a paper, and you are going to publish your paper. First, you have to find before publishing your paper or before completing your paper, you have to include your literature review. So this is going to tell you about your literature review. And in here, I have mentioned how to find relevant research papers. So these are the websites you can use to find research papers, published ones of others. First is ResearchGate. Second is, you know that Google Scholar, Sci-Hub. It's a very special site because you can, everything is in this site is free. Some in this ResearchGate and Google Scholar, they are premium for only for premium members, but in Sci-Hub, everything is free. And then Semantic Scholar, another AI tool, because you know the power of artificial intelligence, so you can use Semantic Scholar to find some of the research papers of other authors. And the last one is PubMed. And yes, these are the websites, but there are more, but these are the ones I especially follow, especially the Scholar, ResearchGate, and Sci-Hub. They are very good websites. You can take anything from there. But in your paper, you have to mention the author. And you have to reference. You have to add your references. But when reading a paper, it's not the way we reading like a book, because when we are trying to read a book, start from the first page, we are going throughout the every page up to last page. But reading a research paper is not like that, because I told you there's a special structure to create a paper, and I told you that you have to think specially about abstract and conclusion, because abstract opens the gates to your paper. It briefly tell you the reader this is a paper about this topic, about this data gathering, and about this answer. It's kind of a executive summary, because it opened the gates to your paper. And conclusion, close the gates of your paper. Conclusion is a summary of your paper. What was your question? How did you find those data? What was the background of your research? Then what is findings? What is your answer? What are the challenges that you faced in your writing paper? Likewise. So it's a conclusion. Never compare the abstract and conclusion because these are two things. The abstract is going to open the gate to your paper, and the conclusion is going to close the it just close the paper. So mainly think about that when writing research paper, you have to highly think about, you have to focus on abstract and conclusion because on your paper, the abstract is the most important part. If someone is trying to read your paper, he is going through the abstract and the conclusion, then the rest. Because no one is like to spend time on someone's work because it's not going to interest for that particular person. It's a fully time wastage. So, okay. In here, it describing what is an abstract. I already told you that it's a most important part. And in here, there's a definition. Abstract is a brief summary of a research paper that describes the study's purpose, methods, findings, and conclusions. It is often the first section of the paper that readers encounter, and its purpose is to provide a concise and accurate overview of the paper's content. So you can take the idea. It's kind of your research in a very summarized way. So it includes everything of your research paper and it's the most important one. So first you have to tell the reader your study purpose, methods, findings, conclusions, blah, blah, blah. As in the point form, I have already had a description. What is background, methods, results, likewise. So background, with the introduction, in that section, you have to briefly describe the problem or research question that the study addresses. The next is methods. You have to explain the methodology used to conduct the study, including the participant, materials, and procedures. If you are on a questionnaire, you have to put it in here. I have already done a questionnaire to gather data. It's a primary research, primary data gathering. The next is results. You have to summarize the main findings of the study, including statistical analysis and key outcomes. In the abstract section, you are going to include your result after summarizing them with the main findings, especially the main findings of the study, including these statistical analysis and key outcomes. Now you have include your background, your methods, your result. But there are more to go. In here, the next part is conclusion. You have to add your conclusion to the abstract to tell the audience that I have concluded like this. So in the conclusion, it discusses the implications of the study's findings and their significance for the field as well as any limitation or future direction for your research. As the final point, you have to add your keywords. Keywords are the most important things that describes the main topics of or themes of the research. So you have to keep in mind first the background or the introduction, then the methods, next results, next conclusion, and keywords. These 5 key points should be in there in your abstract. So there is an example. It's a research paper published by Mr. Dishan Ramyarach and his team. So this will briefly explain what is the discussion or the introduction, what is the issue, and the purpose of study, principal, results, that means the outcome, the conclusion, as well as the keyword. So these are the main things you have to keep in mind when starting to write a research paper. Then the next slide is referencing. What is referencing? When should you reference? But actually, why we are referencing? Okay, let's move. So there are few points. When I go through the points, the first one is whenever you draw upon another source of information, you have to add reference if you have used someone's work in your research paper or the research project. The next, direct quotations. You know about quotation. If you have used any quotation in your research paper, you have to put it under quotations. Then when you are paraphrasing ideas from someone's work, if there is a good paragraph on another research paper, so you are trying to use that by paraphrasing, you have to put it under quotation marks sometimes, but mostly you have to put it in referencing as a reference. The next is when using someone's ideas. As I explained earlier, you have to add reference for them. And the last, specific information like statistic ideas or statistical data or tables or images. So you have to keep in mind when writing a research paper, you should add those references to show that this is my own idea and I already used these one's ideas, these papers, the parts of these papers are paraphrasing likewise. This is another main thing you have to keep in mind when writing a research paper. Okay, it's about again it's about referencing. This time it's about Harvard referencing and IEEE referencing. When referencing, you can divide it into two parts. There is two main parts: citation and list of references. So citation is the part you are going to add after the, if you are taking paraphrasing something, at the end of the paraphrasing you have to add those citations within brackets. And at the end of the paper, you have to add a list of references you have used to write this paper. And in here, there is an example about Harvard referencing journal article. That this is the format. And in the last part, in here, it shows you the text citation, how to use that in our own project. The next part is IEEE referencing. Like Harvard referencing, you have to add the citations with the part that you have used, and at the end of your paper you have to add references list. So in here there is a example about IEEE referencing, and they are different from each other. So you have to think about what will be my referencing method. Is it IEEE, Harvard, or there are so many, but normally we are using IEEE and Harvard. Okay, we have a good example. Okay, before that, now you have a question. I believe that you think this guy is talking about referencing, but how do we add some references to our the paper? So now I'm going to a website called Find This For Me. It's a place where I used to add references to my project or the paper. But in Word, you can use, there is another section called references. You can use to create your references as a list, simply as a list from the Microsoft Word. But my preference is used to Find This For Me, and it gives you several options. If I'm going to create citation, they are asking from myself, is it a website, is it a book, is it a journal, and there are several. And think I need to add some citations to my project. So something I have forgot, but now I'm going to explain with the citation. So I forgot to show you that how to use Google Scholar. I'm going to Google Scholar, and it's like Google search engine. So I'm going to think I'm trying to implement some what is that? Okay, I'm going to implement that genetics related thing. Think I need to implement a new gene to implement create a new tree kind of addition of a rose plant and mango tree. It's a hilarious idea, but let's try to find a paper. Uh, I think I'm typing a genetics algorithm for rose flowers, let's say. Okay, this is not related to my topic actually, but I found some ideas from papers. And you have to keep in your mind if you are trying to use these websites to find someone's work, some publications, first start from the recent ones. Recent one means at least 2 or 3 years backward from today. So this is 2023. First, I'm going to find these things since 2023 from this January. And when click on that part, they will show me the latest ones. So if I want to find the ones from 22, click on that, they will give me everything in 2022, like 2019. But sometimes we cannot find any related thing within these years, like 2023, 2022, 2019. And you can find using this custom range in the past year, like 2005. So this will give you a research papers related to this your research from 2005 22. But I'm going to try to find one from 2023. Um, let's see what will be the best one. Okay, think my project is based on deep learning, that is neural networking. This is my Rose question. There's a good paper. It's published on 2003 from someone called S.J. Butler, S.R. Price, likewise. It's about exploring new strategies for comparing deep learning models. I'm going to read it, whether it's going to support my one or not. Uh, Okay, yes, this is the abstract. For first, I need to read this abstract, but in this example, I'm not going to read this abstract. But let's check whether there are the everything that we need to know about this paper. So the first one, it's telling us utilizing deep learning based objects, likewise. So it's okay. So wait. I think it's just the abstract and there is an image. Let's zoom it to find out whether this is working or not. It's kind of a small paper. So I can see there is abstract and the data set they have used, and the next part they are telling the experiment. Okay, I found that it's just an article. So just ignore this one and let's try to find a new one. So there is nothing related to my search. I'm just going for genetic algorithms. There is a one reconstruct phase from features based on genetic algorithms GN generator as a distribution constant. Now let's go with this route optimization with township logistics. So I'm going to open that one. Okay, it's a paper. So you can see the abstract, the introduction section, and go on. This is conclusions and acknowledgements at the end. Now I'm going to cite this one because this is a web one, or you can download it as a PDF, but I think this is a premium one. But let's try to copy this title and create a citation for this paper and It's a journal article, so I'm going to use this. Or else, let's see whether we have another solution. I'm going to search it as a paper. Nothing. So I'm going to use journal article. So this is a journal, and I have to insert the ODI number. So in here I have to find that ODI number. So okay, let's try to search with this title. And I'm going to search. It's searching, and I found that paper. Let's try to find this is the one or not. Okay, title is okay. Yes, let's think check whether these authors. So I think this is the one. So I'm going to continue, and yes, you can find everything, every detail here, or you can add more details. Authors are okay. I'm going to complete my citation. I used Harvard citation, so this is my Harvard citation, and you can see in here there's a format for Harvard citation, and I can see the format in the example that I have showed using the cite this for me. Like this, you can use a Microsoft Words option, references section, but right now I don't have any permission to use a Microsoft Toolkit in my laptop because I don't have a license right now. It is expired. So I believe that you can understand with the cite this for me example. Next, I have already done IEEE referencing. Just go and check to create a citation by changing this Harvard to IEEE. This is here. You have to follow you can follow the same steps like I have done. And finally, let's move to the next slide, and that's the example. In this example, the title is The Revolution of Online Gaming, Esports. It's a good title, and there's a research question. What are online gamers view about the negative side of esports? We already play games, so this is related to us. And so they have used the audience 50 regular gamers. So they have used the proper audience. The method of data collection is online survey. Finally, they have included these questions in their questionnaire. Okay, let's go with the questions. The first one they have asked, do you consider esports participants athletes? The second is, in your opinion, because I think you remember I have already told you several things when creating a questionnaire. And especially this is the summarize of my entire session because in here you can find that everything that I have told you before. The first is the title. We need a proper title. And the research question, the audience, the method of data collection, as well as the question. So the first question is a structured question because it's a yes no question. Do you consider sport participants athletes? Likewise. The second is unstructured question. In your opinion, you can give any answer. What are the positive aspects of esports? Likewise. So with this summary, if you try to start to write a paper with your own idea, if you follow these methods, you can come up with a very good paper because this is very basic example for writing a research paper, but this example have everything that you need to write a research paper. So Like I told you, the first there's a title, a good title, research question, audience, how to use your audience, method of data collection, and questions for audience. It's okay. I will share with these slides with you after the session. And yes, this is the very important thing. So I have included the important links for the references because these reference sites and videos I have already used them to generate create this presentation as well as for my knowledge. So and everything I need to tell you up to this slide. I believe that you got a good knowledge to write a research paper, but this summary you can use to write a paper and start to write a paper and to publish your own idea to some for the audience. So try to go follow these steps, and it's very good for you to write a paper. And give me a second. Okay, so try to start to write a paper, and using this example, you can come up with your own idea. And this is not the end of the entire sessions. This is just the first one, and up to now, I believe that you got a good idea about to write a research paper, how to write a research paper, how to find your perfect research question, how to organize your paper, what is abstract, what is conclusion, what are the sections of a research paper, likewise. So just go with these links to get more idea and just Google, and you have right now those AI tools like Bard and ChatGPT. Use them to gather more knowledge. Try to use them in a proper way to enhance your knowledge by using them. So okay, and this is the actually end of the workshop one, session one. So thank you all. And okay, let's move for the Q&A session. Guys, do you have any questions? Just ask them anything you want. Oh, සිංහලෙන් හරි කමක් නෑ අහන්න. ඒ ගැටලුවක් නෑ. සෙෂන් එකෙත් මොනවා හරි නොතේරිච්ච තැන් තිබ්බොත් දැන් අහන්න ඔක සිංහලෙන් ආයි එක්ස්ප්ලেইন කරන්න.
Can we use videos as referencing?
Yes, you can use, but I don't think it's a good resource for reference. But for to include a bibliography section, you can use videos, but I know they are not very trusted source, but it's okay to learn from them. But my option is don't use them as references. Just use them as in the bibliography section. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ajit.
Chandima, may I add one?
Okay, Rasandu.
That?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Rasandu, give me a minute.
Okay.
I have forgot to tell you that Rasindu, Rasindu was telling me we already wrote papers, so you can ask any question from them as well as from me. Okay, Rasindu, go on.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to tell you that we can't use YouTube or Wikipedia, something like that, because anyone can post anything on those platforms. ni?
Yes, they are not trusted, but it's okay to use them for your information.
Yeah,
To
but
gain some information, it's okay. Yes, you are right, Rasindu.
yeah, not recommending to use as a references. Don't put them in as a references in your research paper.
Yes, it's not applicable.
That's all.
Okay, any
Chandima.
questions? Okay, Rasindu, thank you for your idea.
Excuse me, can I ask a question?
Sure, go on.
If we want to add a methodology to an abstract, how do we do that?
Okay, if you need to add a methodology to abstract,
Yeah.
I think it's the recommended. There is not a perfect recommendation for that, but you can just use it, just name it in the abstract, but don't try to explain in detail. I have used this methodology, I have worked on like that, but it's okay because it's the way you get the data. So you have to mention in the abstract, but in very simple form.
Right.
This
Thank
kind of
you.
a summary.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.